Hello, welcome to this video on solving quadratic equations. So quadratic equations have three main methods of solving quadratic equations. As we should know, a quadratic equation has got this general form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Of course, in a question it may come given otherwise, but we should be able to first put it in the standard form for us to be able to solve it. So typically there are two solutions, or what we call the roots of the equation, and the nature of those roots depends on what we call the discriminant, which is this b squared minus 4ac based on the standard form of the equation. So there are three main ways of solving quadratic equations: either by factorizing, which is the common way if you can easily find the factors, which is the quickest way to also solve if you can easily find the factors. Using the quadratic formula, also a very common way of doing that, or doing the completing the square. So in this video we're going to focus on the method of factorization. So we're going to focus on those quadratic equations where we can easily factorize. So the first step is to write the quadratic equation in the standard form. As I mentioned, typically the equation can be given another form, but you should first convert it into the standard form. And this method of factorizing is best suited for the cases when the coefficient of x squared, that is the a term, is 1. Right? Then now to do the factorizing, we determine the factors of c, which is this last constant term, that add up to give the b, which is the coefficient of x, and taking note of the signs as well. So if c is 0, then one of the roots of the equation is 0, because we simply have x squared plus bx equal to 0. And to factorize that, we simply factor out in x, and we have x plus b equals to 0, meaning that x equals to 0 or x equals to minus b. So the roots of the equation, or the solutions, are the values of x that make our standard form to be equal to 0. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Example number 1. So we're trying to solve for x, and we're given our quadratic equation, and you can see that it is in our nice standard form. Okay, so x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals to 0. So we look for the factors of 10, positive 10, sign included, factors of positive 10 that add up to give negative 7. All right, so we know the factors of 10 are 1 and 10, 5 and 2. So looking at 5 and 2, and we can get negative 7 if we have negative 5 and negative 2. So negative 5 and negative 2 multiplied give you positive 10, and added together give you negative 7. Hence, those are the two factors that we want. So once we identify those two factors, negative 5 and negative 2, so they come with x in the bracket. So it will be x minus 5, x minus 2 equals 0. And that helps us obtain our roots to say that the first bracket gives us 0 when x equals 5, or the other bracket gives us a 0 when x equals to 2. All right, so those are the two solutions for that equation. Let's look at another example. So in this case, you can see that in this term, in this equation, our c equals to 0. the normal standard form without the c term. So this is easily factorizable as well. Just factor out x plus 3 equals to 0. So the solution is x equals to 0, right? When we get a 0 if x equals to 0, or when this x plus 3 equals to 0, which gives us x equals to minus 3. Those are the solutions for that equation. So you factorize, never ever divide by x because you lose a solution. Okay. Here's example number 3. Solve for x. So now you should be able to see that our equation is not in standard form. So we first try to manipulate it to put it in standard form. So here we'll multiply the x inside to get 2x squared minus 5x equals to 12. And then we get 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 equals to 0. Now we have our equation in standard form. So to factorize this, now it's a bit tricky. So we're going to have our two factors as usual because we expect two solutions. Okay. So now because we have a 2x squared now, it means in one of the factors we should have a 2x, and in the other factor we should have an x term. Then the other terms must also be factors of 12, of negative 12 in fact, right? Sign included, right? Factors of negative 12, but they need not add up to give us this middle term because we now have this 2. Okay, so you need to think about that to say, okay, with the 2 included, the factors of negative 12 are either 12 and 1, 3 and 4, 2 and 6. Then you figure out when multiplied with the 2 and including the signs, when do they give us to minus 5? So in that case, you'll see that we should have a plus 3 here and a minus 4 there, which then tells us that 2x plus 3 equals to 0, or x minus 4 equals to 0. So from this we get x equals to negative 3 over 2, or x equals to 4. That will be our solution. So that's how we do factorizing in such a case where we have our equation not in standard form. All right. So thank you very much for watching this video, and we'll continue looking at other ways of obtaining solutions for quadratic equations.